You are now listening to For All Nerds Show, a podcast about geek and pop culture from the perspective of people of color. For All Nerds is hosted by DJ Ben Amin and Tatiana Keene Jones. For All Nerds Show is a member of the Loudspeakers Network, where we always say rest in peace to our founder, Combat Jack.
For All Nerds Show is powered by our listeners. Everything we do, from our podcasts, live events, our website, are all independently funded. Please continue to support us through our Patreon page at patreon.com/forallnerds.
Welcome to the Fan Bros, the show where the bros are fans. Doodle.
And welcome, fan, to a special report of For All Nerds. As usual, you know we bring you everything that's important to your life, whether it's pop and geek culture, but also sometimes it's about the real life, day-to-day stuff. And of course, as you know, for over a year and a half now, I think we're nearing the 2-year mark at this point, we've been giving you the information when it comes to all things COVID. You know how it's important to us to educate our fam, to give you some information, some sound information, okay? We're not talking about the Facebook pharmacists, but we're talking about people who know what they're doing, people who have degrees, who know the science, who want to talk about the science and logic and things like that. Because of that, we have our boy, our resident epidemiologist, Dr. Brandon Ogbunu, that has basically worked at every Ivy League you can name and some that haven't even been invented yet. But the most important is he went to Howard HU.
You know.
All right. And he has graciously accepted our invitation to be on the show again to talk to us and give us an update, because it's been a while since we last talked, Brandon. And I mean, I just want to again, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show once more. And also thank you for all of the work you've done since the beginning of the pandemic. So we're talking about March, April 2020 at this point, and now we're in August 2021. Obviously still dealing with this. I do want to also preface by saying, you said so. You told us this a year ago that it's not something that was just gonna fly away on its own. Not something that's gonna burn in the atmosphere when it got warmed. It was something that we would deal with for a long time. And as everyone sees, it's something that's ever evolving. So, before I get to questions and all the other stuff, I just wanted to, again, just thank you. Go ahead, and if you wanted to just say hello to everybody, say what's up, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. This is, I've done a lot of public engagement in the last year, but this is the best of it. I think I love this community. I love the work you do more than anything else. I'm a fan of yours and of Ben Amin's. So it's just a thrill for me to be here. I think before we have this session, I should probably do something that I did not do in the prior episodes that I think is really, really important. And that is disclose I don't have any conflicts of interest on this topic, right? I don't have any. I have no financial kind of interests in any particular outcome. That's number one. Number two, credentials are not everything. They're not the most, right? They're not everything. There are a lot of people who have a lot of fancy degrees who are saying the wrong thing and have been wrong, and I do not agree with. That said, I am a professor whose lab studies virus evolution. My doctoral work was in virus evolution. Mm-hmm. I've peer-reviewed, published papers in this. So I'm not someone who kind of parachuted into this topic and decided to try to build a celebrity out of it, like a lot of people, right? So this is not my game. My game is my interest is really just solving this thing so we can kind of move on as a society and get back to talking about For All Nerds type stuff. So I just wanted to make sure that was properly disclosed up front.
Yeah. So in the time that we've spoken last, definitely the fam itself, Ben Amin and I, we got vaccinated. I know a lot of people have gotten vaccinated. Generally, my whole family got vaccinated. What has that looked like for you, your family, your community? Can you just share some of the updates on that?
So I think the key thing about this pandemic, and it's going to be defined by how the narrative has changed. It's like the disease itself has changed.
Yeah.
And the conversations around it have changed. Okay. So for example, you go back to November 2020, when I was on Clubhouse and in all these environments going to war on vaccine misinformation. At that point, Black folks had basically like the highest vaccine hesitancy of any kind of ethnic group in the country.
I remember.
And really what's happened since then, and there's a lot of reasons we get into, that actually changed. Black folks actually started to get vaccinated and still not high enough. We can get to that perhaps, but still not high enough. But the vaccine hesitancy dropped and people actually went and got vaccinated in pretty high numbers. So to Black folks kind of credit. So, despite the fact that people say we don't listen and we still have a lot of kind of problems in our community we have to address, and Black and brown communities we need to address. Quite a few of us were listening and actually did take the information and actually did go out and get the vaccine. So what I'm saying is that's something that has changed. I think today in the United States, 49% of people are fully vaxxed, which is not nearly enough. Frankly, it's higher than I thought, though. Right? And I think 70% of people have at least one dose of a vaccine in the United States. So that's where we are today.
So you said 49%. So a little less than half. I mean, you said that's not nearly enough. What would be nearly enough?
Well, the estimations, change, right? And I think that's a thing. But I think, when we're talking about, 100% is what we want, right? But what we this herd immunity number, right? This herd immunity, you might have heard this phrase. It's enough people vaccinated to kind of cut off the virus's route, so that it kind of extinguishes on its own. And that number kind of ranges between 70 and 90%, depending on right who, some estimations say 70%, some estimations say as high as 90%. 90% is like ridiculously high and unrealistic.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the answer is as many people as we can possibly get vaccinated. I think, we'll talk about this in the context of Delta, but I mean, what we're continuing to learn, one of the themes that's shaking out of all these problems, including where we are now, is just how important and effective and awesome the vaccines are. Right. So we really, really need to continue to push that message.
Yeah. And I want to go to the vaccine itself, the development of the vaccine, just how, and correct me if I'm wrong, but was this just an unprecedented cooperation of world governments, countries, and the speed of which they were able to achieve this vaccine?
Yep. So that's a big point of contention. And I think it was early on with regards to why people didn't want it, right? Even the branding Operation Warp Speed probably wasn't a good term to use because, people thinking like, well, you're rushing these things into our arms. I think you think about Operation Warp Speed was not just about speed, though. It was also about resources and data sharing and communication and workforce, right? So I mean, it was just unprecedented amounts of money kind of thrown at these companies that were developing these candidates, right? And again, the technology goes back a decade or so. So it's not right, and so it's a lot of money, unprecedented communication. Workforce development. I imagine I don't know what your favorite food to cook is. What is your favorite food to cook, Tatiana?
Lasagna.
Lasagna. That's actually an excellent one, right?
Yeah.
As long as it takes to cook lasagna, right? You can whip it. You can put it together fast. There are corners you can cut if you only have to focus on that and nothing else in life. You know what I'm saying? If you take all your resources and you got to focus on one thing, there are corners here. Now, there's some things that have to be done, right? There are other things that, you can cut corners on, be there in terms of ingredients, be there in terms of time. You can turn it up. You can turn up the stove a little higher and things cook faster. You can do that. The reason why you have a standard recipe for cooking lasagna, though, is that's like the safest, most responsible way to do it on average. There are things that you can do faster. And I think that also goes for the drug and vaccine development process. What happens is that's what Operation Warp Speed does. It allowed us to kind of cut some of the fat, have everybody focus on that pretty much, right? Which allowed us to move at a faster rate. And because of that, we got a suite of really, really effective vaccines, of course, ranging from Johnson & Johnson to Moderna and Pfizer in the United States and some others overseas.
Right. And then when we talk about this suite of vaccinations, as you mentioned, at least in the U.S., the big three, I'm calling them, the Moderna, Pfizer, and J&J, the thing that I guess has been it's become less of a concern, but then over time has become more of a concern is the idea of 2 doses versus 1, right? I know with J&J, as far as I know, they're the only ones that have this kind of one jab, one jab to rule them all type of approach, right? But also various, I guess, certain people are feeling some type of way about it. Like, and when I say feel some type of way, I say it like they're just getting upset. But no, I mean like some people have effects on it. as opposed to people who have like Moderna and Pfizer and things like that. So one of the questions that has popped up was just like, what is your take on the J&J vaccine? The fact that it's a one jab situation versus a two. Like, do you feel any or want to share anything particular about? And I don't want to, again, you didn't develop the vaccine, but when they say something, this is just as has just as great of an effect, is that true? And is this something that we can look forward to doing going forward?
Yeah, no, I mean, I got the vaccine that was readily available to me. If that was Johnson & Johnson, I would have gotten it. I'm a huge fan of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Okay.
I think the one jab, it kind of helps with individuals who have, it helps access. It's an access issue. It helps individuals who can't get off work, or individuals who can't travel or can't access it. You go in there, you get it, and you're good. And I think the vaccine is very, very effective in particular, right? I think Delta has changed the conversation in some ways, but it is very, very, very effective against, most of the kind of original collection of mutants that were causing disease. And it is also effective, at least to some degree, to a large degree, against Delta. So I'm a huge fan of the Johnson & Johnson. I don't think it's inferior. And I think it's saved a lot of lives. I think it's something, yeah.
Definitely. And with this understanding, and we know that, right? We know that we see that lives are being saved because of that 49% who have indeed taken it. That being said, with the rise of, you mentioned the rise of mutants, we'll get to that, but with the rise of use of vaccines, you having the rise of myths, right, of vaccines. And I want to talk about that a bit because I think that's still something that I really think it requires daily clarification on what the vaccines do and what they don't do. Now, remember back, and I say back in the day, it was a year ago, back in the day, you explain to us, like, the vaccine, no, you're not putting a live portion of the virus into your body. What it is instructions to your body to let them know when this Negro shows up, this is when Tyrone shows up, this is how you kick him out your house, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two, after that, people started saying, okay, well, if I get vaxxed, that means that's a silver bullet. I will never have to, I'll never get COVID and this and that. Can we talk about some of these myths and please dispel them or enforce if it's really true? So the first, if you are vaccinated, can you catch COVID again?
Yeah. So the answer is yes. And I think the analogies we've heard for most preventative measures are pretty good. So you heard this you heard this comparison to seatbelts.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Just because, right? And I think it's a good one, right? I think, and that's also a mandated one, right? Just because you wear a seatbelt, right? Just because you wear a seatbelt, right? Does not now you look at the number of lives that seatbelts have saved. It's shocking. A number of accidents that would have been fatal had individuals not had their seatbelts on, which is why it's good to wear seatbelts, right? But wearing a seatbelt does not mean that you can drive however you want to drive.
Wearing a seatbelt does not absolve of accidents.
It does not. Right? It does not. It does not mean you're not going to get accidents. And I think there's an analogy here. I think let's kind of take it to an analogy that's closer to what we actually are experiencing with regards to vaccines. Now, and this is what I think. And it's been a while. I'm older now, so I haven't been to the nightclub in a while. But I don't know the last time you've been there. But I don't know about you.
You call it nightclub, so I could tell.
That's old man stuff. You know what I'm saying?
You can't go to Bella Noche's.
I didn't, yeah. You know what I'm saying? See if I can cut a little rug. You know what I'm saying? I'm just joking. I'm not actually that old. Whatever. I went to the same clubs you went to at Howard, I'm sure, but whatever. I'm saying like this. I know when you go out, right? Mm-hmm. I know for me, there are certain friends that I would go out with, and it didn't matter how respectful I acted. They weren't friends. They were people I went out with.
Okay.
It didn't matter how good I acted. I always got into conflict when I was with these people. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I would go out and it's like they were just beef machines. Like, and sometimes I don't know what it was. It was always some kind of fight that broke out when I was with them. You see what I'm saying? And so, right. And the idea here is this: you can sometimes, right? The thing is this: if you surround yourself with a bunch of knuckleheads, even if you behave yourself well, right? The odds of you jumping off and getting into a fight are higher if you are around individuals, right, who don't know how to act. And that is the analogy here is the same for vaccines, right? Now, what a vaccine does is it prevents, like I said, just like when I go out, I know how to back off. I know how to walk away. I know how to be like, but if you are around, right, because we have so many unvaccinated people, and this Delta variant in particular is running wild, right? And because people are now not social distancing, and because behavioral kind of things are out of control, and we're not mask wearing, and we're not doing all these things. So between not unvaccinated people, between kind of people not knowing how to act, and you saw the concert stuff in Chicago, which I don't blame people for, because they're obeying the law. The law says they can do that. Because you have all of these conditions here, even if you're vaccinated, which prevents serious illness and death, even in Delta, you still have a high chance of becoming infected by people because you're around people, right? If you challenge a system enough, the odds are you may get infected if you're around a lot of infected people, even if you are doing the right thing and have the vaccine.
In summary, fuck around and find out. Got it.
So you act that way right now. Again, here's a critical thing. Several things about the vaccine. Number one, you are less likely, right? And the data on this changes daily. You are less likely to get it, and you are way less likely to be symptomatic, and even less likely than that to be hospitalized. So the vaccine. So I think right. So you can get infected. We call those breakthrough infections for individuals who are vaccinated.
Okay.
But once you do, right, you are less likely to get. Way less likely. I mean, estimates now are 97 to 99% of new hospitalizations from Delta are unvaccinated individuals. That's right. 90 of all individuals who are getting hospitalized for SARS-CoV-2, 97 to 99%, depending on the estimations, are unvaccinated people. Yeah. So unvaccinated people are still the people who are suffering, dying from this thing.
And I want to pause you there because I think it's important to make that distinction. We've seen so much. And I hate to say this, but really bad communication, particularly from newspapers and even the ones that you're supposed to trust. Like the way that they frame this has made it very confusing for people, and again has pushed more of these myths out there and really just caused more confusion. Like there was, I believe it was the Washington Post or another one that was just like, 95% of the people who were vaccinated, they all caught COVID. I'm like, yeah, because that entire group is vaccinated and someone caught it or whatever it was. So can you just what you just said, can you just please hone in on that?
So let me, and again, this is another thing I'll say a lot. The data on this change daily. We're getting new information on this. And I reserve the right to say what I'm saying now is different, to say something different tomorrow, as any scientist does.
Yeah.
That is what makes science so beautiful, is that we get new information and we update it. So what I would say is a lot of what we know now comes from this case study in Provincetown. You might have heard, right, in Massachusetts, where you had this very, very wide, big outbreak, 469 people, and essentially 3/4 of them were vaccinated. Okay. Only a very small number of them, were very, very handful, like 3 or 4 went to the hospital, were hospitalized with it. Okay. So that's right. And so that was the thing. That was the piece of information that gave us like, oh, wow, vaccinated folks can be infected and spread this thing. Frankly, I think it's the spreading of the Delta variant by vaccinated. That's the problem. More than the disease, you're pretty good when it comes to like serious illness. You're pretty good for serious illness, right? Like, but in particular, if you have Pfizer and Moderna, I think Johnson & Johnson, the data are less clear right now.
Okay.
But a little bit less clear. But you're pretty good for serious disease, right? In general, if you're vaccinated. I think it's the fact that you can spread it to other people that's the problem. Right. So vaccinated individuals can get an infection, even though that infection is not going to cause you, like the odds are, it's not going to cause you a serious problem. It will not cause you serious disease. We don't think you still are able to spread it to other people. Now, why is this a big deal? Right? Because again, this is a big deal for a couple of reasons. Again, it's not a big deal for the vaccinated with regards to their health. A couple of things changed. Number one, it's different than the original, the strain that caused, right, the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic originally. For that one, the data say that vaccinated people do not spread disease.
Right.
So the original is like, when you're vaccinated, you're not spreading that original strain. That piece of information. That data is why they were like, if you're vaccinated, you can right,
you have a
go back to
blast.
normal. You can go back to normal. You're right. That was the piece of information that fueled the changing of the policies, because it was like, now we're saying you could spread this thing, right? You could now a lot of this is being sorted out. Now, there's some caveats here, right? And a lot of this data comes out daily, and we're learning some new things. If you are vaccinated, let's take an unvaccinated person and a vaccinated person. Both of them get infected. Early windows, both of them are infectious, we think. We think a vaccinated person and an unvaccinated person. But if you're vaccinated, your body's immune system crushes the virus pretty early. You start pushing virus down. So on the long term, you're not as infectious as an unvaccinated people. In the early window, we suspect that you are, right? Maybe even lasting a few days. And it's not, that's still a problem. That's still a huge problem.
That's how it's
a huge problem, right? But one point is, it is different than being unvaccinated and having the Delta variant. So that is where we are, and that is why now the conversation is like about the mask conversation and the social distancing conversation is reemerging, because it's like, we don't want vaccinated people being able to spread it just because it's just not a good look.
Yeah.
That's why the message has changed. And just to kind of insert this point again, Tatiana, right? When people change their stance, that's not a sign of them not knowing what they're talking about or them contradicting themselves. That is a sign of them reading the literature and learning the new science of what's happening. That is what you do. There's not a single, take diabetes, take migraine headaches, take any of these things. We do not treat them the way we did 20 years ago.
Absolutely not, because you have new information, new data, no technology.
New technology, it changes, and this is no different. It's just happened faster because of all the eyes on it, because all the people working on it, and because of the way this virus evolves so quickly. So that is the nature of why we've changed the messaging, is because the Delta variant offers some new biology that we're learning, which is going to inform us to make some different public health decisions.
Yeah, and that touches on a general pet peeve I've had ever since the CDC publicly announced, like you said, they made a decision based on the data they had at the time. Oh, have a blast. Summer 2021 is lit, right? And to me, and I also communicated this with you, I thought that was the biggest mistake ever, because it was already that point of no return of people saying, I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Like all this ridiculousness. And then you then give everybody license to just wild out because, people are cooped up, this and that and the other. I thought it was too early because of the very reasons that you stated, because and again, I'm not a scientist and not a scientist on your level. I'm a scientist by nature in terms of the way I think and the way I process stuff. And logic would dictate to me that for something that you're living through in real time, meaning, as you say, something that's a virus. And when I say something, I mean the virus, the SARS-2 virus. Like, it's changing in real time. You're getting new data in real time. We are getting vaccinations in real time. Like, and I feel that was the part that wasn't communicated properly. And not to say that would have cleared up everything, but I really think that would have, if that was kind of really impressed upon people early and consistently, and when I say consistently, I mean drilled down to your head, just like how they was drilling down about social distancing and masks, I think it might have helped people understand. When I say people, I'm talking about the population in the U.S. I'm not talking about anybody else. It would have helped people understand, because one of the main things is I've seen is that people, a lot, not everybody, but there's a contingent of people who, and not anti-vaxxers, but just people who don't trust the CDC because they feel like, oh, you keep changing your mind, you flip-flopping this. And again, it goes back to what we've just been saying. It's not about not knowing what you're talking about. It's not knowing about being wishy-washy or anything like that. You're working on the information you have available for you. And as that in real time, once again, real time, and it's changing daily. Tomorrow, something new can happen, which is what is going to inform that position. But because of that, that's why I always felt like it was too early to tell people it was okay. Because and this is not necessarily finger pointing, this is just me expressing just the thoughts I've been having. You know that this is something that is fragile. This whole situation is very fragile, and it's literally on a fault line. It's moving every day, right? So why then tell people, oh, it's cool? Like, is it just the pressure? Is this obviously political pressure, all this other pressure? What is it?
That's exactly what it is. I mean, a democracy is easy, very easy to run with people like you. Or that's not true. You know what I mean? Or rather, right? But you challenge authority, you ask difficult questions, but you are logical and you are science. You believe, it's not so much believing in science, but you understand the scientific method and the way it works.
Mhm.
And so you evaluate things, you make your decisions. You didn't make them out of emotion. You sure as hell didn't make them out of, a random from some Facebook pharmacist.
Absolutely not.
And I think it's easy to run, not in the sense that you are going to follow any piece of information, but the information that you use to make your decisions is logical. And unfortunately,
Right.
That's not most of the country. I think absolutely the messaging has been driven by the populace. The way they delivered information is driven by how ignorant people are. And I mean, the House Republicans the other day, I think, a few days ago, issued tweeted "No Mask Saturday" as a political sense.
I mean,
This is the stuff we're dealing with now, right? And so the CDC has to their credit, they are the country's right body that deals with this. And so, and I'm not defending them at all. I'm just giving the context.
Yeah.
Into that context, they were looking for a reason to be like, please come up with a reason that people can kind of go back to life as usual. People were unhinged, people were that. And I think they rushed. In a population of Tatiana King Joneses who look at the information, who ask the critical questions, who are smart and educated and thoughtful and logical. Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't have to deliver that. They could have delivered the truth as it was, like, yeah, we're doing really, really well right now, but this is a fucking virus and this could change again in a hurry. And so y'all might not want to act a fool tomorrow, right? Like, I'm saying? We might actually want to wait and see. And you may not want to give up mask wearing right away. And maybe the indoor restaurant thing in full blast in the span of a few days probably wasn't a good idea. So I think that's exactly what it was. It's the climate we're in.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have never stopped wearing the mask. Like, I liked, I mean, beyond the science behind it, I like the privacy. I liked the fact that I didn't have to like put on full makeup and do all this other stuff. It's just like I didn't find it a problem, and I understand like there's multiple reasons why people can't or won't wear it and all of that. But at the very end of the day, it's also just like, do you want to live? And perhaps I'm too harsh in my approach, but that's how I've been trying to express it to people who are just out there not really taking care of themselves. Do you want to live? I'm tired of seeing news articles and reports about people who are literally on their COVID deathbeds. It was like, and texting each other, oh, I should have took the damn vaccine. It's a little too late for that.
Right.
And, I kind of don't have the sympathy at that point.
Look, I'm right there with you. I mean, I think, this is another thing that's changed. I think early on, I was much more of I understand your pain. I understand how you feel. I understand why you don't trust it. I understand why you don't trust it. I understand why you don't trust it. And I still am, because I do empathize.
And there's some valid concerns.
And there's some very valid concerns. And there will always be valid concerns. But to your point now, I think this has gotten to the point now where my patience has run out, because it is leading to dead people. Do you see what I'm saying? And at some point, I have an obligation, right? I mean, look, people was calling me all kind of names. I was getting called an Uncle Tom and all kind of stuff like this. Yeah,
really? Why were you getting called?
Well, because I'm falling in line with this white man's science, and I have a European education.
Because of Tony?
I'm dead serious.
Because of what Big Tony Fauci saying?
And you know what? I don't mind. Like, I've dealt with that. That's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to chastise me, but like, look, hate on me, but understand how science works. You know what I'm saying? And don't and the hotepery is stuff that we've all dealt with in our lives. I got love for a lot of the hoteps out there with their crazy kind of theories for how things work. So I'm not disrespecting nobody from my community, but I think it has gotten dire. And it is to a point where even my patience has run out on trying to kind of like hug and console everyone. I need to try to do the things I need to do to keep my people alive. So it's really, really upsetting.
What's upsetting to me is people not believing a man from Brooklyn. Tony don't give a. Yo, are you shitting me? Like, like if Tony is telling you this, and like, you see how he got in a few senators' ass. Like, what? Like, I don't understand the. I mean, I do understand it. It's people just obviously just wanting to do what they want to do, but when there is clear and present danger, why is it so difficult to, just follow a mandate such as wearing masks?
I mean, I think what it is, I, I think that people, there are a lot of reasons why people have this issue. This is a lot of goofy energy right now in our community when it comes to the way we engage politics and each other. And you know what I'm saying? And I think that we don't understand how much like our oppressor we sound. You know what I'm saying? And I think that goes to the way our community deals. This is another issue, but the way we deal with, for example, LGBTQ stuff, right? A lot of Black men in my generation are have very bad politics when it comes to that kind of stuff. And this is also the Venn diagram is very, very strong with the population that's very, very deeply kind of anti-vax or whatever you want to call this thing. This is a strong Venn diagram there. And I think what they don't understand is they sound just like white racists.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And I think and that's the other group where vaccine hesitancy is the strongest. So what I'm saying is we don't trust these, so I get why we don't trust institutions, right? But if you don't trust institutions, right? If you don't trust, who is it? Do you trust nobody, or do you trust no information? Do you not trust medicine at all? So I'm gonna tell you right now, like we've all right, that's a sword you want to fall on. That medicine and the science doesn't work at all. Because how the hell, when you turn on your tap water, there's a reason why you drink it and you don't fall dead from cholera. It's because
you trust the system.
You trust the system to deliver you clean water. Or you trust the system enough to put clean water in the bottled water you buy. Or you trust the roads that work. Or you trust there's a lot of things that are built on infrastructure that a lot of people, from engineers to scientists, have built that work for everybody. And so we pick and choose these things, right, based on bad information, which I understand, and it's costly. So I think the Black and brown community, but everybody really needs to just take a deep, deep look at itself with regards to why we have some of these bizarre, deeply weird anti-government views. I'm critical of the government all the time. I will be to the day that I die, right? But right, and we should always cross-examine things, but we have to kind of take a look at the whole picture and not nitpick and pick and choose these things based on what we saw go viral on Twitter.
Absolutely. So, we talked a lot about the Delta variant, and I just want to give people an understanding of what that is, because I mean, first of all, I love all the jokes people have been cracking. They be talking about, all the Delta variant, all the Sorors are coming out. Like, I get it, like hilarious. But also, I'm like, do you understand what that means? And you made the point of making the note of that. Some of the stuff that the CDC said when everybody was like, "Yo, go outside and kiki," was, we know this vaccine works very well against this original strain. Now we way beyond that. We in the purple rain strain now. You know what I'm saying? So can you explain how we got there? Or and you don't have to go through the whole history, but how did we get there? And like, what is the Delta variant?
Yep. So the Delta variant. So it started happening. There was we remember when there was the UK strain, and then there was the Brazil strain. So
yeah, I remember.
Really,
those.
I mean, going back almost a year, right? What ends up happening is a virus replicates in hosts, and I think when it's replicating, it's making mistakes. And anytime it can make mistakes, it can mutate, and those mutations could lead to new strains. So you've had like the existence of strains now for a year, and I think a year ago we were like, we would see these in certain places, but we didn't know if they were real strains. We were like, okay, well, we see this virus type, this sequence in this region, but we don't know, is that by chance, or is that a really different strain that's causing a much different disease? And the UK strain was the first one, right? That one had a higher transmissibility, the UK strain. And then there was the Brazil strain. Now, the UK strain, the Brazil strain, the South Africa strain, all of those strains, while we think they are different and maybe more transmissible and maybe causing slightly more severe disease, the vaccine whoops them all. Now they are, and even though they are more transmissible, they're not more transmissible to the point that it is really driving through populations, right? But the point is this: when we saw that happening, it's kind of like any problem you have in a relationship, or not to make it grim, but you see it in a relationship or something like that, and you see like a warning sign early.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You try to ignore it. That's probably going to pop up again. Whatever that issue is. Red flag. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what it was. When you saw those strains popping up, that was a sign that this virus mutates effectively and can transmit effectively. And we're probably going to see more of that. And that still goes today. We're probably going to see more than Delta, right? So and we now there's a Lambda strain, which is not quite Delta, but Delta's still exactly.
We down to Lambda now? What's going on?
Yeah. But Delta's still the one. Delta is the one that rocks the house. And Delta is significantly 40 to 60% more transmissible. We think causes more, at least slightly more severe disease, generates thousands of times more viral particles. I mean, it is now sweeping the world. Over 80% of infections in the United States now are Delta. 90% of the ones in that Provincetown study were Delta strain. So Delta strain really is becoming the dominant. It's sweeping. It's more powerful. It's a higher fitness, as we would say in evolution, right? It's the more fit version, and it's really
more
really,
brolic.
It's more brolic, way more brolic. Now, how is it doing that? We think that there's a lot of this is being worked out. We just think it gets in and just really efficient at replicating. It just makes a lot of copies of itself. But I think right now we're trying to figure out whether or not where it's replicating. We think maybe it replicates a lot more in the upper airway, so the nose and the throat, which is why it's so much more transmissible, rather than replicating a lot more in the lower airway. Now, if it replicated much more severely in the lower airway, you would see even higher death in severity. It is more severe, but it's way more transmissible, and it's like a little bit more severe.
And just to just go back to like when you explain what a virus is, like all the virus knows is I need to live, right? I need to come outside. I need to party. I need to bring my peoples with me. I need to make more peoples, right? All that stuff. So it's okay.
I mean, like, it infects cells and replicates. That's all it does, and it's biological, natural.
And that's what, besides obviously interacting with different people and biomes and all that stuff, this is how the virus continues to try to live. It mutates.
That's right. I mean, viruses do this all across. Plants get viruses. Your dogs get viruses. Viruses are like the most successful biological thing on Earth and in the universe, as far as we know. So this is what they do. They infect and they mutate. Right? The key is, if we're good enough and we're smart enough and we intervene strongly enough, you can cut that off. You intervene aggressively enough, which is why we weren't wiped out. Which is why smallpox, which did wipe out indigenous communities, right, didn't take over the world. Why polio didn't take over the world. Why HIV didn't take over the world. Like, we've had a lot of success in a lot of these things because we intervened at some point.
Right. So with that in mind, like obviously we've encountered and through our own lives as humans, we've encountered tons of viruses. We encountered some on a yearly basis. Is this the point where, and I think you said as much last year, but is this the point where COVID is here to stay? Like, this is something that will never go away. This is something that's going to be potentially like how we have flu season. Are we going to have COVID season? Like, what are we headed for?
Well, I mean, the thing about influenza, the seasonality of influenza is, one of these, it's a little bit different because, like, the way influenza lives in these different animals and the way they kind of come together and they swap genes. And that's why you get this new kind of flu thing happening. And then people move inside. So I don't know if it's seasonality with COVID, but I think it will be here. I think there are strains of SARS-CoV-2 that will be part of the human experience forever. Now, here's the key. We have a dope vaccine for this. We have a dope vaccine, and we have the technology to generate new ones. We can. That's the thing. We have the technology now to take the Delta strain and engineer. I think Pfizer's doing this, right? We can actually come up with another effective that targets specifically the Delta variant. We can do that.
Yeah.
So we have the tools in place to knock this on its ass. I think now the problems are the tomfoolery with vaccine adoption here, and even bigger is vaccine availability globally. getting this into Africa, getting this into Southeast Asia, getting this into India, getting this into Bangladesh, getting this in these places where you have high population density. And the story in those places is still not clear. I mean, India has a very bad pandemic now.
Yeah, they shut down again.
That's right. And Indonesia has now a bad pandemic. So it's starting to hit these places that it took a while to get. So my point is, I think it is here to stay. But the good news is we have the tools to do something about this one. But if it's not going to be this, I think we're entering an age of emerging infectious disease. I think we're going to be dealing with diseases of various kinds, right? For a while until that's the bad news. But the good news is, right, this is where a generation should rise. And I think young kids now who are growing up, now we're going to have a generation of people is going to be better than me, is going to be whole armies of people like me. This will be the defining thing that young people work on. And I think if you have human beings rise with our ingenuity, we could do something about this. You know what I'm saying? So my point is, I'm optimistic for that. So I do think we're entering an age of emerging infectious disease. I think we're going to see kind of variants, not only of this. I mean, you had SARS-CoV-1, you had MERS, we had SARS-CoV. Like this is happening now, folks. And so I think we're going to see others, some non-coronaviruses, some other kind of viruses. I think we're going to see them. But I think hopefully now we're going to have the resources and the time and the energy and the care to put the resources in to be able to do something about it. And that's what I'm optimistic about.
Right. Since you mentioned we have the technology to potentially engineer an even better and stronger vaccines and all that stuff, what does that mean in terms of getting these shots? Like you said, like, is this mean like we're going to have to, I mean, and again, what happened, is going to, excuse me, what will happen is what I'm trying to say. And just in your thoughts, like, are we going to be approaching a place where we need to get multiple shots like a year? Again, though different than the flu, that's what we tend to do, right? Every year you get a flu shot if you need to, right? Or that's what they recommend. Are we going to be doing this every year? Is it something where they say, okay, well, maybe you need to get a booster every so often? Like, are there any thoughts about that? Like, I know you've been doing a lot of research. Are there any thoughts about that approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think a booster, given how fast this evolves, I think a booster is down the line.
Do you think it's imminent, maybe?
I think it is because, well, so here's the good news is right now, the vaccine still works quite well against Delta. So in terms of the thing that the vaccine was kind of designed to do, which is prevent serious illness and death, it still does that very, very well. So the vaccine's still working as it was engineered to work for every variant.
So regardless of variant, at this point, what we know is it's still widely preventing against serious illness and death. So the current vaccine as we know it.
Right. Oddly, like the thing we continue to learn is just how important the vaccine is, just how effective it is. Vaccine makes it harder for you to get the Delta variant. It makes it once you get it, you can spread it, but you're still less likely to die or become serious ill or be symptomatic.
The idea is if you do spread it, it may be going to another vaccinated person and they are not going to get, like you said, seriously ill or sick, hopefully.
The fear is that it gets into an unvaccinated person. You see what I'm saying? An unvaccinated person might get seriously ill, and an unvaccinated person can spread it to more people because the viral load is higher for longer. Right. So you see what I'm saying? So that's the thing we have to work with. But in terms of boosters and all that, I think right now, I think right now the biggest intervention we should do is just get back to responsible social distancing and mask wearing. Right. I think that's the most important thing. Get back to kind of responsible behaviors to kind of break chains of transmission of this disease. Now, the thing we're looking out for that would make boosters absolutely necessary tomorrow would be a variant that fully escapes the immune system, the vaccine induced immunity. Meaning, if you have the vaccine, you get sick like anybody else gets sick.
Oh, like no holds barred.
No holds barred. As like you don't as if you are effectively unvaccinated. As in the vaccine does not work against a virus strain. Okay. And right now that hasn't happened yet.
You said the word yet. You're scaring me. You said the word yet.
But we have to be mindful of this. We have to have this on our mind that this is a possibility. At this point we have to have this in our mind. And I think one of the things that people are doing is trying to get ahead. There's technique. I have colleagues that are doing things like you can generate kind of in using computer simulations. You can generate variants of the spike protein, and you can be like, based on the way that looks, That one looks like it might escape antibody, right? The antibody response. So you know what? Let's build a vaccine of that one ahead of time. That's what I'm saying.
I see.
We have people on this shit.
So people like you and researchers are also modeling the different paths and routes this thing could potentially take, and then trying to be proactive.
Yeah, using AI, using machine learning, using these tools. We're actually putting tools now. We can potentially stay ahead, and we do this with influenza, right? That's the strain that you get. Right, the vaccine that you get for that is based on a prediction, and that shit is right.
Now that's interesting. Now could you say that? And I'll complete the circle in a moment. But can you say that about, at least from the beginning of all vaccines? Like, you're kind of working on, I don't want to say a presumption, but a very educated guess of where it's going. Like, because I just find it funny how people, like, they have all this talk back about this vaccine, but it's vaccines is the reason why a generation's never heard of chickenpox. The vaccines is a reason why generation, including myself, never heard of or seen polio, even know what that does to you, except for if you go back and read Wikipedia or something. So
that's the irony of the way a lot of folks who are like critical of the system, right? I don't believe in this because, the critical system and, I don't want this because, what they do with my community. Ironically, a lot of vaccine hesitancy exists. It's a point of privilege. A lot of vaccine hesitancy is because we don't know what it's like to experience bad diseases. We weren't around to deal with polio before the polio vaccine. We weren't around to deal with, like, we weren't around during 1918. We certainly weren't around during Black Death. We have this, right? We don't know that viruses in particular will wipe us out. They have wiped whole populations out. So while you're fearing, right, what Fauci's saying and with the vaccine, whether or not there's nanobots and the 5G and all this dumb shit, while you're fearing that, viruses are literally laughing like, y'all don't understand. We'll get y'all niggas up out of here.
Right.
They have wiped out whole populations, right? Infectious diseases. So what I'm saying is, when we sit here like, oh, well, I don't like how Fauci changed his message because he got new data. When we're doing that, this little song and dance, we're doing that as a point of privilege because we have not dealt with infectious disease. I remember Senegal. Senegal had one of the best early responses to the vaccine. You want to know why Senegal had a good early response to the vaccine in terms of the government and the testing? It's because Senegalese people understand what infectious disease is. They got a malaria problem, G. They got kids that die under 5 of disease. They got these places that deal with disease. They don't play that shit.
Right.
Here, we're like, because we don't deal with it, right? We have this point of privilege and convenience to be like, nah, I'm good. We need to get wise to it. Or if something's going to hit, that'll be much worse.
This is sounding very similar to a point you made earlier, just about how that Venn diagram of people who, in our community, who you sound just like the oppressor and all that stuff. Like you said, like, it's that point of privilege, and privilege comes in many forms, right? If you don't have to think about it, you don't have to deal with it. You may not, it's one thing to not understand it, but then to ignore education about it.
Right.
That's where I have my problems.
Look, man, I mean, not to be grim about this, but, I've done work in Africa. I did malaria work in Africa. You know what I'm saying? Like, I saw children put in this earth from that shit a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, infectious diseases are serious. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying right now, like, and by other infectious diseases, like, we need to get with all the tools that science can provide to save Black lives. And that's mean you just blindly jump in. No, you ask the questions the way you ask me questions. You know what I'm saying? And you should be critical and all that. But I think people are coming from a confused and goofy place.
It's the goofy part that kills me. I have just a few more questions for you. But I thought this was funny. Earlier, you said that you made the caveat that, just because, people are degreed and they're this and they're that, they still can also say some foul shit. And that is also the point of contention when we talked about misinformation and myths and just all of this stuff. When you have and you know, I've had a conversation today where people who, I mean, again, nothing to do with epidemiology, but you know, they're doctors and they're saying some wild shit like, you're stupid for wearing a mask and all this stuff. And I'm just like, who do you, and it's like, I also understand when people say I can't really trust nobody. Who do you trust when you have people who are supposed to be credentialed saying foul shit? Like what can people do, in your opinion, to get plain English understanding of what's going on? And as I've been doing to just understand and get the data.
Well, I mean, I disagree with the ways. This is the thing about the way science works. We fight all the time in science. There's people who I disagree with about. There's people who I admire, and there are points that they've made that I disagree on. The difference is, right? The difference is when they speak on things and they put something out there, they are willing to change their opinion if better information kind of comes up or we learn new things. So what I'm saying is now here's the thing. Even me and the people who disagree on specifics. So for example, I have a colleague and I disagree with some of on how we interpret some of the mutations we're seeing in the Delta strain versus I have disagreements with colleagues about this.
Yeah.
Yo, we agree on everything else, meaning we've vetted all the other information. We know, right? There are things that have now been demonstrated, like whether or not the vaccine fucking works. You look in early January, right? Our peak, it was like, I mean, we were having like just tens and tens and tens of thousands of infections per day, hundreds of thousands of infections per day. And then like right when this vaccine, I mean, boom, the bottom drops out of the curve when the vaccine starts. We start getting the vaccine. Like, so yeah, so my point is there are certain things that, right, you have to consult a consensus for because multiple people have examined the data and have come up with the information. The CDC is not the Wizard of Oz. There's not like a guy in a castle that like pushes those reports out. That's dozens of people who comb through thousands of pages of information. And so, and they get some things, right? There's some things I don't agree with what they do, but it's not because some dude said it. It's because a lot of, now I think when in the Trump administration, there was like this political pressure for them to get, right? And, you know, but like that, when even Fauci is not the Wizard of Oz. Fauci has a team that gives him information. You see what I'm saying?
Understood.
Right? And I think that's where he gets it. So what I'm saying is, how do you get your information? Places that it's like the Marvel. I mean, bring us to Marvel. The reason why they're killing it is because of their writers' rooms. It's because of their democratic nature of which they're storytelling. So places that are generating things by some kind of democratic process, which is what science is, places where these messages emerge through a democratic process where it's like, and it's still, Marvel still makes bad movies. You're still going to get some things that aren't always right, but the process feels good. So this is why I know the New York Times writers personally. Them cats read everything.
Yeah.
I know the Atlantic Monthly writers, and I can give names. Catherine Wu from the Atlantic Monthly. Follow her on Twitter. You know, Asian American sister. Bad. Reads everything, right? Do I agree with her on every point? No, but she's able to synthesize and come up with what she understands based on. So in terms of who to trust, it's the places that get their information based on synthesizing multiple viewpoints, not people who rule by authority or rule by a cute TikTok page or rule by a cute, and that even goes to people I agree with. Like people who do the cute, I'm gonna rap about that. I don't like that shit either. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you don't like the covert raps. You don't like the TikTok fans. That's a variant.
I'm not hating on it because I understand it has a utility. But what I'm saying is I don't like the cute shit. Like I like to get my stuff from people and some of them, to their credit, some of them have read everything. So I'm not disrespecting nobody. I'm just saying that it's less about cute and authoritative YouTube channel and more about people with good graphics and shit and like, you know, and more about no Umar Johnson kind of thing. No more. I mean, whatever. But like, you know, I'm entertained also. But we don't need that for COVID.
Okay.
Right? For COVID, we need people who synthesize things and who take multiple pieces of information. Now, I think a lot of the major things, the CDC does that. The New York Times does that. A lot of the writers for the Atlantic do that. The Financial Times is a great daily tracker. That's that's quite good. Product of a team of data scientists. It's quite good. So I can actually provide some of these resources for the listeners.
Oh yeah, definitely want you to share that.
Yeah, I have some links that we can.
We'll definitely post that up. I'm not sure if we're even, this might be streamed right now, who knows, but we'll definitely post the links there. We're also going to put it up on our socials for sure and just share it in a place where you can just click on it at any point and get some more of that information. As we look forward to the future, kind of just to summarize, like at least for the foreseeable future, we are going to be dealing with COVID. The severity of that will depend greatly on a variety of factors. But the point is right now, what we do know is the vaccine as it stands works. It works in terms of severely, not 100%, but severely reducing how sick you can get and potentially go to the hospital because of it. It significantly reduces that, regardless of the strain we're talking about at this point. What is the outlook that we're having when it comes to children? Because, children still, as far as I know, nothing has been authorized for children to take in terms of being vaccinated, yet schools all over the country are, opening up, accepting children by the dozens and all this other stuff. So what is there any outlook in your community about, and when I say your community, I just mean the science community about that?
We need to be, we need the mask in schools.
Okay.
So Delta is more transmissible in children. There are more children with, it looks like, and this is early, but and the data aren't clear. And I think children are like the group where children are the group where the best data is the last to come out of because it's the hardest group to study.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? You can't just recruit kids 5 years old for a clinical trial. It's very, very hard to get good data on children. Yeah. Now, that said, I think we do think we think it is more transmissible in children, and we do think children are slightly more likely to get symptoms, not serious illness, but symptoms. You know what I'm saying? And so I think on the balance, schools should be, should reinstitute a mask mandate. I think Fauci said it the other day. The fact going back into lockdown is not really an option. I just think that people will have a psychological meltdown, and I agree with that. I think we can't go back into lockdown. People aren't in the psychological state. You see the way violence has come. I mean, it's just been we're in a bad state right now in society. Mm-hmm. But I think for children in particular in schools, as the fall comes, we need to mask up. We need social distancing. We need some responsible kind of behavior to try to cut transmission chains at school.
Okay. And another question that came up, and give me a second, but another question that came up was, in the future, and again, maybe this is just all vaccines in general, but particularly for COVID, is there going to be a new delivery system for you to get it into your system? Obviously, we're all used to shots, but if you do think, like if you are a Star Trek fan, for example, you see how they have the hypo spray where it seems like it's like nothing physically, like piercing your body, but it's getting delivered into your system. Is there going to be a different method of delivery for COVID? And obviously that would potentially help, right? But is it always going to be a needle that has to hit a certain part of your muscle? Do you think in the future there's going to be maybe some type of pill or spray or something?
Yeah, no, it would be nice if it was. I think it would be nice if it was. I think the field of there's a field of pharmacology that works on drug delivery, and right now the key thing is we just want this. We deliver it in a way such that it gets into the bloodstream quickly and in high volume, so that the body's like the papoose on a banister.
Yeah. The white blood cell. Yes, I remember.
Right. So I think, and so that's the way to kind of trigger the immune system, in a really, really, really big way. But I think, so I don't know of any plans to develop. Right now, we're just trying to get the vaccines into as many people as possible. But you're right, it would be a really big breakthrough. So I know of no plans to make it like a nasal spray or a pill. I know of no plans for that. I'm sure there are companies and groups working on that because, I think a lot of people would like it better if they weren't. It's the needle, right? People just don't like being injected with things. Yeah. And so for the optics of it, I think that would help quite a bit.
Yeah, which is interesting because needles are nowhere near hurt as much as they did growing up, and nowhere near as big or anything that I remember. But okay, and another question was, if you're vaccinated and you catch COVID, particularly multiple times, because we've seen instances of people who have caught it multiple times, and even just catching, does that reduce the efficacy of the vaccine?
No. I think for individuals who are vaccinated and have caught COVID a couple of times, there's several things that could be going on there. Number one, could be bad luck. I mean,
Sucks
number
to be
two,
you. Like,
number
damn.
two, it could be that for whatever reason, their body's immunity was not triggered very strongly by the vaccine. And that could be the way it was injected. It could be something about their immune system. And our immune systems are different. And some of our immune systems respond very strongly to some things than others. And so some people just don't generate a very large response to the vaccine. And so their body never really got like that big, burst that you need to kind of really, really fight off coronavirus infection. And those individuals are going to be the ones that are candidates for boosters. Right. Those are going to be individuals that are candidates for boosters. But I don't think getting vaccine does anything to the original. I mean, getting infected has anything to do with like diminishing the original vaccine. I think that's not true.
And in reverse of that, would getting additional vaccines on top of the ones you already had, like say you already have 2 shots, would that make it stronger?
Yeah, I mean, no, not necessarily. I mean, no, and not meaningfully so. Like, I think if you take a bunch of vaccines, yeah, I mean, are you by waking up the immune system multiple times? Yeah, maybe are you like making your immune system kind of hyper reactive? Couple problems with that. Number one, the answer is maybe you are, but that doesn't mean you're clearing infection any better or you're doing any better. That's mean, right? Number one. And number two, that's where potential side effect stuff comes in, right? Because you actually, the immune system, as dope as it is, it's really, talk about like the friend we have when we go out or something like that. I mean, it's like the big quiet dude or whoever, in my case, dude, who I would roll with, where it's like, you wake him up, you know what I'm saying, and it's a problem. Like, he could be a problem once his anger gets going. Meaning, you don't want to overstimulate an immune system. In fact, right? So a lot of autoimmune disease, for example, like multiple sclerosis, lupus, right, comes from. That's why when you're getting a vaccine, they ask you about that. They ask you about autoimmune disease. Not to say, and that group, people are very careful when it comes to vaccinations. They still are getting them, and they're still working beautifully, and they're still fine. But they want to know about those types of things before people get vaccines because of autoimmunity. That's when your body's immune system is kind of turning on itself. What I'm saying is giving multiple vaccines over and over again probably isn't a good idea because of the potential to kind of overstimulate the immune system and maybe getting an autoimmune response. So you don't want to do that. We don't want to just be giving out vaccines going every other day like you're going to get almond milk.
Okay. And is that also that understanding? I mean, is that also the reason why it's like, I mean, to me it's common sense, but it's also where they say, well, don't mix the vaccines. Like, you shouldn't have a cocktail of Moderna and Pfizer and J&J and all this stuff.
Well, I think the reason why they say don't mix them is because we don't have data on it. We don't have good data on it. That's just a responsible scientific thing to do. Like, you recommend Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer and Moderna because we have tens of thousands of people in a clinical trial and we know what the results are on that thing. So we're recommending the thing that we have data on. We don't really have, the trial did not test Pfizer first, Moderna second, Moderna first, Pfizer second, J&J.
It hasn't tested.
It hasn't tested. Based on what we understand, like based on, is it probably, I mean, well, again, I'm not here to
like, do you get superpowers if you get all three? Are you collecting Infinity Stones?
It's just not wise to give anybody anything that hasn't been studied. Right now, for the Johnson & Johnson, there's a little bit of concern that Johnson & Johnson is slightly less effective in the in the lab. Right, there's a little bit of concern that it's a little less effective against Delta, even though that may not be the case in the real world. Right, we're still fact finding on this. We don't know yet. And so one of the ideas there was that maybe Johnson & Johnson people would get a Pfizer or Moderna, or one of the mRNA. Get one of the mRNA. So that's an idea that's been floated, that maybe the Johnson & Johnson people would get a booster from one of the mRNA ones and that way. But again, this is now being tested and floated and examined. We don't know this yet. But right now, combining them and switcherooing is not recommended because we don't have good data on it.
And that just goes back to what we said earlier. Just, we are simultaneously in the stage of discovery, learning and growth and education, and everything is continually changing. So as you say, in 3 months we might have something different, but right now that's the understanding.
Here's the thing about somebody like Fauci. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Tatiana, you're a boss, right?
Thank you.
You're a boss. No, I mean, I'm just stating the fact, right? When you're steering a ship, right, you have to be agile. You have to respond to the way the market changes. You have to respond to the way your listeners and your customers change. You have to respond to that. But you're the boss, and you have to deliver a clear message to the people you work with or your partners.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's what he has to deliver a clear, definitive message about what we're going through at the moment. That's his job. And he has to do that because we have to make hard decisions about what to do. You have to know how to kind of, Operation Warp Speed. We have to know about what the recommendations are about whether we should be mask wearing. These are real concrete decisions that have to be made, right? So that's why, right, you have to be authoritative. But if the story changes, the same way with you, if your businesses change or if your priorities change, you have to change. That's the way it works. And so I think in the context of somebody like him, when people do these silly mashups where they're like saying, oh, he contradicted himself. It's like, look, the virus contradicted itself by evolving.
Yeah.
That's what happened. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the thing that people, fail to understand.
The virus evolved, so your communication about it has to evolve.
It has to evolve. It has to. And that's changed with everything. That's the same thing with HIV, same thing with Ebola. It's the same thing with influenza. We're always kind of updating our information as we get it.
Okay. All right. So as we wind down, you have been incredible as always, and you've really provided a lot of clarity to a lot of the questions that people have been having. People have been asking me and wanted to know. And you yourself, again, you're an epidemiologist, you're in the lab, you have a team, as you said, it's a democratic process, right? So you're learning a lot of different things. Is there anything that you think it's important to share that you all have learned, that's public, that you all have learned that people should know about, be aware of, or even any like lasting impressions you want to leave on everyone listening?
I think lasting impressions, just how we're not done. Right, so let's play the bad news and the good news. I think we're not out of this, and I think this is an unfortunate situation where we've all learned how under threat all life on Earth is by right. I think what they say, all of the SARS-CoV-2 particles on Earth can fit into a can of Coke. And in that, right, and in that amount of so my point is, this is the threat. These things that are kind of so small can cause us so many problems, and they have been since the beginning of time. They've always been a threat, and they always will be. But at the same time, I want everyone to keep in mind, this is a moment for us to reflect on how far we've come as a species. The most powerful tool. I know people who practice it aren't always nice. I deal with these assholes at my job. I know scientists are racist. I know they're sexist. I know science has problems. It has a lot of jerks in it. It's not inclusive. It's capitalist. It's greedy. It's not environmental friendly. But I'll be damned if science isn't the most powerful and amazing thing that humans haven't ever come up with. And we all had a role in that. That wasn't just white men that did that. That wasn't just rich people that did that. We all played a role in science. And so I think if we all feel like we were a part of this thing, which we were for the beginning, we was doing something, right? If we all felt like we were a part of this, then we wouldn't feel like this science is somebody else's. And we wouldn't, right? Maybe that would help some of the distrust. And that's what I want to leave people with. We're all part of this in various ways. Just you doing this. You've given platforms to people. You've gotten people. I mean, he won't admit it, but he's vaccinated because of you.
Well, he's vaccinated, and he also talked to you, right? He talked to you at length to get information.
No doubt. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, I think that, but having you, because frankly, having you on here and him being unvaccinated made him look silly at times. God, and I love him for it. But what I'm saying, like you weren't disrespectful, and he's brilliant, right? But like it definitely helped to have you be a person in his personal life that had that. I think it helped him, and I think he got as he should. He got the facts that he needed, and I think he made what I believe to be the right decision. But what I'm saying is you and Ben Amin, your voice, bringing me on, even giving me this platform, this is how science works. Somebody's going to be stimulated by it. Somebody's going to be inspired by it. People have reached out to me.
Good.
You know what I'm saying? Independently. And so my point is, this is how we do this movement. This is how we change the world little by little. I know it sounds pie in the sky and highfalutin and a little hippie-ish, but it's true. You know what I'm saying? We're all part of science. And I think if we believe that, then we can do something about a lot of these ills, not just disease, global warming, climate change, a lot of other stuff.
Dr. C. Brandon Ogbunu here once more, laying down the science for everybody. Thank you so much. And again, every time you're here, you also educate me. Like, even when I'm like, oh yeah, I figured it out, he taught me, and I'm like, oh, that's new. Let me put that in my pocket, or let me file that away. Thank you again for all of your support, number one, and the love and all of the education you've been giving us. Where can people, if they want to talk to you more, they want to get some more information, where can they find you? Where can they read? I don't know if they have the licenses too, but they want to read some white papers or whatever. Where can people find you?
So I'm on all the socials at big_data_Kane, Kane. That's all the socials.
Okay.
And I think you'll see my link tree there. You'll have access to my research and my writing. I'm going to start doing Twitch streaming again on this stuff soon.
Nice.
So I'm going to start the engagement process. I've done Clubhouse stuff on this, even though that place is. But my point is, you know how it is. But my point is, I'm going to be doing more engagement on this. Reach out to me with any questions, concerns, and we can kind of do this in whatever forum people want to do it in.
All right, sounds good. Fam, thank you. As I said, this has been a special report of ForAllNerds. Very important that we have this conversation. We will continue to have this conversation and also have updates in the near future. As Dr. Brandon, as I call him, has said, make sure you hit him up if you have questions. You can also hit us up at ForAllNerds or at Tatiana King. Also, DJ Ben Amin, say what up to him, even though he's not here. We still love him. At DJ Ben Amin. And as always, make sure you are subscribed to ForAllNerds on your favorite podcast platform. We are damn near everywhere, virtually every platform that is known to man and soon to come. We are on there. ForAllNerds. Make sure you are following us. Make sure you're following us on Twitch as well. Twitch.tv/ForAllNerds. If you have the means, please also subscribe to us. If you have Amazon Prime, you get a free monthly subscription to a channel of your choice. Please make that ForAllNerds. We appreciate it. And if you enjoyed what you hear, you want to hear more of this, or you enjoy listening to Views from the 616 podcast, you enjoy listening to us talk about geek culture, pop culture, and the things that really super matter, just like this whole COVID situation we're in, please think about supporting us on our Patreon. Patreon.com/ForAllNerds. Doesn't matter what tier you're on, you get all the love from us. You also get special privileges. And for all those people who are currently on the Patreon, your rewards are currently mailing out. Make sure you be on the lookout in your mailbox. That being said, thank you, everybody. We love you. We appreciate your support. Thank you for listening, and we're out.
Fan Bros, FAN, we are for all nerds.